everybody. Welcome to What's Up with Pastor Chuck. And on this week's podcast, we have a very special guest that I cannot wait for you to hear from. As a matter of fact, I got to tell you this. When different people in our church have heard that I were going to have him here, I mean, they lit up. They got so excited. They're like, oh, I'm going to tell all my friends. So, by the way, you might want to tell all your friends. But it just caused this incredible buzz, and I cannot wait for you to know why the buzz is there, why the excitement's there. And by the way, that right there was a little play on words, because I have Kyle Mann with me from Babylon Bee. Get it, Buzz? Buzz. Okay, I'm the only one. I'm the only one right now. But Kyle, welcome.
Thanks a lot. Yeah, we get a lot of buzz puns, you know. The Hive, I don't know. Like, we get all kinds, Sting, you know, I don't know, anything like that. But we've heard it all, so.
Yeah, so my joke was not original.
No, sorry, man.
No, that's fine.
I hear a lot of jokes.
And cool. So Kyle is the editor-in-chief of Babylon Bee, which is, tell everybody what Babylon Bee is.
Yeah, so Babylon Bee is a Christian news satire site. So what we do is we kind of take the headlines of the day and we report on them, but we also make up the news in a lot of ways. A lot of people tell me, they get their news from the Babylon Bee because it's a good way to kind of consume the news in a humorous way. So we cover the news of the day, current events, pop culture, general everyday life, husbands and wives, families, all kinds of stuff like that, church culture, theology. So we have all kinds of different areas that we cover. But we just write headlines that are satirical, so it's a typical headline that might read like a regular news story, but then we just put a twist into it to, introduce some humor, and hopefully that's a fun way for people to kind of see what's going on, but not get too freaked out about it either, because we're joking around about it. So it's similar to the Wittenberg Door used to do, but on a much faster scale and pace. And The Onion, if you're familiar with The Onion, but in more Christian conservative bent.
Yeah, when I was first starting out in ministry, the Wittenberg Door was huge. I mean, we could not wait for it to come out. And I think you guys have a lot of that same appeal. Like in my feed, when all of a sudden one of your headlines pops up, I get notified right away. And it's like, oh, I can jump there, and it's fun.
Yeah, in fact, I lived just a block or two away from where the Wittenberg Door used to be published down in El Cajon a few years ago. And so that was an interesting connection to be like, wow, we both of these sites kind of born in the same areas in a lot of ways. So
yeah, you know what's so funny? I am going to apply scripture to what you guys do. In Proverbs 17:22, it says, "A cheerful heart is good medicine." And I feel like in a world that we live in today, you guys are bringing good medicine. You're bringing a lot of fun.
Well, that's the hope. We get a lot of email from people who just can't consume the news without freaking out about it, and my wife even. My wife hates following politics. She gets off Facebook and off Twitter and all that because it's too much. Everybody freaks out about everything, and with the 24/7 news cycle, it's just like, everything is a crisis and everything is this world-ending, just disaster. No matter how bad it really is. And so, like my wife, she's like, I don't want to know what's going on in the world, but if she sees a Babylon Bee headline, she doesn't think I'm that funny, but but maybe someone else wrote the headline, I don't know. But if she sees a Babylon Bee headline, she'll be like, oh, I guess something's going on with Joe Biden or whatever, but she can laugh about it and not have to worry too much. So
yeah, I don't want to get too far off, but
sure.
Part of what I do is counseling, and a lot of people I meet with are really struggling more now, because of all the bad news that's coming, all the divisiveness that's in it, all the attacking going on. And the stress level has been hard. But I do think what's cool is when you can get them to laugh. You can get them to at least, relax maybe. I think your site could get people to relax. Then it really is good medicine for them.
Yeah, there's something about humor that helps you to see that, okay, we're going to be okay. If we can laugh about this, then you're not gonna fear it so much. So that's something cool. Another thing that it does is it communicates truth. It's something it's a vehicle for, delivering a message. G.K. Chesterton once said that humor can get in under the door while seriousness is still fumbling at the handle. And that's kind of how we see it, that like you can read so many blog posts and news stories about so many different things, and it just starts to be this, you start to get numb to it after a while. But humor kind of can cut through all that.
I love that. I think that is so, so true. So before we dive into the site, I want to hear some about you. You already told me ahead of time that you are a believer. You love the Lord. You even said the site is a Christian site. Tell us about your background.
Yeah, for sure. No, I grew up in the church, kind of a Southern California megachurch style atmosphere. So that's where I heard the gospel. That's where I got baptized. Off in college, I went to the Master's College. I think it's the Master's University now. And then I did a lot of Bible and missions classes. And then after that, I got a job in the construction industry. So that's about how useful the Bible degree was for me, or the Bible classes were for me. But yeah, I did construction for about 10 years, but on the side, just bivocationally, I ended up serving in the church down in San Diego. I helped to co-pastor a small church for about 4 years. I was there, and so I did that. And kind of right along the same time with that, the Babylon Bee launched, and that's and so I was kind of like helping to pastor a small church. I was in bivocational ministry doing a secular job, 50, 60 hours a week, and it was just this great outlet for me to start writing stuff that, I mean, we all, if you grew up in the church, you have a bunch of baggage and stuff to talk about.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Especially kind of 90s megachurch culture. So yeah, that's kind of where I am today in terms of my spiritual walk and all that, and I've kind of run the gamut of various different sizes of churches and denominations and all that, and so it was kind of fun when we started writing the Babylon Bee, because we were almost writing the articles like just kind of self-therapy, We write articles making fun of fog machines and laser lights and all that, because it was just therapeutic for us. But then they started to go viral because other people felt the same way, but we didn't plan that. We didn't think it was going to be these huge hits. Like, it was just something we were writing for ourselves.
Okay, I love that. By the way, I do want a big shout out, because Kyle was actually baptized by a really good friend of mine, Chris Brown, who's at North Coast right now, and what a cool connection that is.
Yeah, isn't that interesting, huh?
Yeah.
It's like God is sovereign or something, almost. Like,
yeah, almost. He's almost sovereign.
Almost.
Oh, that's good. Okay, so why is it called Babylon Bee?
So the founder, there's a couple different layers there. Like, on one layer, it's just a really cool sounding name. Okay. And originally, the founder, Adam Ford, who launched the site out of Michigan, and I got involved on day one, but when he was founding the site, he read about the Onion. He loved the Onion. He followed the Onion, and he read some Onion headline, and I always forget which one it was. But there was some Onion headline that was making a point about one of these big Supreme Court cases or some other giant cultural war issue, and it was making the point from a liberal, secular, atheist point of view. And I remember Adam said that he read that headline and he goes, "This is such a clever way of putting this that I wish I believed what they believe." Like, it was almost like, that's so cool that I want to hear their point of view because it's just so clever. And he's like, unfortunately, I disagree completely with the point that they're making, but it's really clever. And he's like, why is nobody doing this from a Christian perspective, or at least from a Christian perspective, or when we comment on political events, at least from a position that isn't like completely anti-God, and. So the Babylon Bee name kind of came about. He was toying around with other names that were much more generic, stuff like Christian News Daily.com, stuff like that was just it sounded like every other site, and it was kind of a stroke of genius that it turned out to be Babylon Bee, which just sounds it's got a mystique about it. It's not like, is it Christian? Where's it coming from? And it doesn't really like put it right out there. So, but yeah, Babylon just kind of being like, we feel like we're in exile in Babylon, and so these are dispatches from Babylon. And Bee is nice because it sounds the same. It's like Sacramento Bee or whatever, and it's got a stinger. Bees have a stinger, right? So there's another bee pun for you.
Okay, yeah, I didn't even think about the stinger, but there are that moment, where that happens. I feel like, as I've looked at the site, you guys are equal opportunity at making fun. So is that a part of the underlying philosophy you guys have?
Well, yes and no. I mean, I think on the one level, you don't when you're writing comedy, you don't want to make balance your number one goal and your overriding priority, because then you're just going to be very generic and you're not going to have a unique voice and style. So if we said, like, for every article we make fun of Democrats, we have to make fun of Republicans, then you're not going to have a unique voice. You're not going to be able to look at a particular situation and say, all right, which party is being the bigger idiots here? And also there's this element where satire doesn't really take a position per se. Like, satire doesn't say, this is what I believe. Satire, the whole point of satire is to deconstruct something. So whoever's being a bigger idiot at the moment is is the target, or the bigger hypocrite, or there's irony there that you can make fun of. Then that's something that we want to be able to do. But I do think it's important also to satirize your own beliefs or your own traditions in some way. It's just the tone is going to be a little bit different. When we make fun of church issues, we're not making fun of the very concept of God, or we're not making fun of the Bible itself, but we might make fun of the way that we as Christians fail to live up to what we believe, or we might make fun of Christian perceptions about God, misperceptions about God. We might use Bible stories to make a modern day political point, or to tie in different references that other sites might not be able to do because they don't have that background and knowledge. So yes, balance in that nothing's off limits per se, but also we do have to have a unique voice and style. But another point to be had is that one of the reasons that we got so big so fast was because 95% of comedy outlets were controlled by the left, and they weren't making fun of themselves, and they weren't making fun of the left, at least not with the same brutality and savageness that they'll make fun of the right. So if we had just come on the scene and been like, oh, let's just make a bunch of Trump jokes, or let's make fun of Christians, it's like, well, everybody's doing that already, so it's not interesting, So we did obviously make fun of church tradition and Christians, but it was in a very different tone and style. It was clearly the people that are writing the Babylon Bee know about church culture. They're writing this more loving satire of it, versus you watch a Netflix show and they make fun of the Christian. The Christian's always the idiot, and it's quite obvious whoever wrote the Netflix show has never been to church in their lives and doesn't know the references or how to actually make fun of it in a way that makes sense. So,
yeah, I think that's one of the things we do see, is because I do think there's funny things about us. I think we need to be able to laugh at ourselves at times, but I think a lot of the media we see have no clue about what we do, why we do it, what we believe in. And yeah, I think that'd be very true. What are some of the challenges you face, though, as you get ready to write? Do you just write freely, or is there kind of a check and balance in your mind sometimes?
Yeah, just create. If you're speaking creatively in terms of challenges, there's so many different considerations when you write a good headline or you write a good story. We have different writers who will pitch us ideas and jokes, and we have kind of a running group chat where people will pitch ideas. And from the writer's perspective, I want them to be able to pitch kind of whatever idea they want and be as creative as you want. It's a safe space in some ways, right? Make whatever joke you want in here. And then as the editorial process, we have to go, okay, well, what do we actually want to put out there for the world to see? So there's a lot of considerations there, can this joke be misunderstood and misinterpreted, even if it's a good joke, or no, that's not what we were trying to say. Yeah, but people are going to read it that way. Obviously just originality. In the age of Twitter, it's as soon as something happens, there's 800 billion jokes about it already out there. So you have to find something that's unique, matches your brand, matches your voice, matches your style. And it's new. We don't just republish, a funny Twitter joke, or take the joke that everybody's telling and retell it in our own way. You want, and in a lot of ways, comedy, you want it to be this third voice, right? Because in every issue that comes out, there's one opinion from the left, one opinion from the right, and they're just battling. And comedy, in a lot of ways, has to come in with this kind of third angle that nobody saw coming, and that's the way that you're really going to be able to cut through the noise in the conversation. So. And traditionally Christians have struggled a lot with art and comedy, because I think we see art as, especially Protestants, I say that as a Protestant, but we see art as a vehicle to get people saved, and we don't see art as a worthy pursuit or end in itself. Just to make something beautiful, or make something funny, or make something good and true. We want to make something so that you get to the end scene in the movie where the atheist gets hit by the car and accepts Jesus, or whatever, as he's dying in the street. That's what, not to get too specific, but that's, that's kind of what we've seen it as. So the creative challenge is, how do you write something that, maybe you're really passionate about the point you want to tell, but you can't be as passionate about that as you have to be about the actual comedy. It has to be funny first. And if it's not funny first, people are going to start to see that oh, they're just bitter. They're just trying to they're angry and they're just trying to tell this point. So I guess that's just a few of the challenges creatively that you face every day. And it is. I mean, we write eight articles a day every day, 5 days a week, and then a few on the weekends. So it's a lot of churning content through and trying to find something good. In comedy, you write a lot of waste too. Like we probably pitch 100 headlines for every 2 or 3 that we publish. So it's a lot. I mean, it's, you know, and anybody who's written comedy, whether for TV or movies or written comedy or whatever, knows that. Like you're going through a lot trying to land on something that works.
Yeah, you know what's so interesting? Not that I doubted it, but there's just a lot of what I call layers underneath each thing you're doing. Then, because there's you're well read. You know, there's a lot of philosophy though to what you do that you don't want to veer from, so that you keep your brand. You know, there's a purpose to it. You know, there's a level of checks and balances. It just sounds to me like, you know, people sometimes think when you go to comedy, you just throw out a joke and it works. Yeah. Where no, you guys like work and there's a lot of work underneath.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and that's true of any field. Like any field, you look at an artist, you're like, how are they so good? Well, it's because they've been drawing since they were 2, and they kept practicing and drawing terrible renditions of horses and stick figures until they, you know, and they kept practicing at it. And that's definitely true of comedy. Is that you're going to keep working at it and practicing at it. I mean, and once in a while, yeah, a joke just hits you like a lightning bolt, and you're like, this is gold, you know, and this is going to be perfect. But I think because we've been doing it for so long too, like I've already got those filters in my head where I read hundreds of headlines and I'm just like, nope, not that one, you know, and I don't even articulate why. And my writers kind of hate me in a lot of ways because I never respond to anything. So if they pitch me an idea and I don't like it, I just ignore it completely. Until I like one, and then it's like that's the one, you know. So because I guess it's too much time for me to and I almost can't even articulate why a joke won't work. And you know, a lot of comedy, it's in a lot of ways you can't articulate why that one works versus that one, and as soon as you start to break it down and explain it, it's not funny anymore. So
it seems to me that one of the hardest parts of what you guys do in comedy though is it's written. So you don't have facial expression, you don't have the tone of voice, you've got to really be able to nail those written words. That to me seems harder.
Yeah, I mean, there's unique challenges with stand-up comedy versus written comedy, but I enjoy written comedy because I am more of like I like to just hide in my garage and write and not have anybody see me, you know, like that's more my style, more introverted or whatever you want to call it, but it is a completely unique, you're right, but I do love that about it because it is this interesting art form where I think Stephen King says that writing is like writing is the closest thing to like magic or being what is it called, like being psychic, because like you're sitting in one room and you're writing something and with nothing else other than a paper, you're picturing something and making someone else picture it in their head hundreds of years later or tens of years, you know, decades later when they read it. Like you've gone across time and space and they're picturing the same thing that you're picturing in your head with nothing but a piece of paper and a pen or whatever. And I love that like there's this art form of this word and not that word will make this headline work, you know, or make this joke work. And it's so cool to be able to do that. And like, yeah, we don't really have any personalities or, you know, we have a podcast, but it's like very, you know, it's more behind the scenes for the fans, you know, that kind of stuff. So it's just like not even people knowing our personalities or who we are, and we're just like the secret Willy Wonka's chocolate factory of humor, and that makes it. I think that makes the comedy work in a lot of ways. You know, people identify with the brand, and these people kind of think what I think, you know, and it just becomes being able to throw things out there with just the written word, and that's a lot of fun to me.
Well, I actually have two questions that hit me. Let me give you the first one. In this day of what we call the cancel culture, you and I already talked about this a little bit, but I'd love to have people hear your take on it. What challenges make it harder or more difficult to have comedy in the midst of that?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's, you know, comedy is the antithesis of cancel culture because the whole thing with comedy is like, you know, we talk about the line in comedy where you don't want to go too far over the line. You want to kind of be edgy without being offensive or, you know, whatever. And we have to be particularly concerned about that being a Christian site. You know, we obviously have other lines that we can't go across and all that. But that being said, the comedian is the guy who has to kind of be that character that says the thing nobody else wants. Everybody else is thinking but can't say for fear of, you know, reprisal or whatever, or doesn't want to say, yeah, I don't want to be that guy and go out and say it. I mean, a lot of the success of the Babylon Bee is because we were writing these things. We launched during the 2016 election. We were writing things that were critical of Trump. We were writing things that were critical of Hillary Clinton. We were just kind of mocking everything in the whole show. And I think a lot of Christians, like, there was this weird political divide, and still is. Everybody's getting pulled in different directions politically, and there's this whole realignment happening. And so for us to be able to say something that people are like, well, I don't want to say that on my Facebook feed, but they'll share an article that's funny and that's making fun of it. So. Getting back to the cancel culture thing, I think that's why comedians become some of the early targets for that kind of stuff, is because they're the court jester, that's sitting there making fun of the king, and so the people who are controlling all the cultural institutions, they hate the people on the fringes that are standing there and mocking it and saying the emperor has no clothes. I mean, they're the first ones to get executed in a lot of ways. So we've been relatively fortunate ourselves in terms of cancel culture. We can discuss some of the censorship issues and stuff, but we've been relatively fortunate just in that we haven't had too many issues of individual people like getting fired or removed from their jobs. But we know a lot of people in the space that do have those problems, and it's a big deal right now.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I think part of what you already said too, the divisiveness. So when you're, the elections and the politics and everything. Have created this divide, where, people are so polarized. It's just, well, it's sad to me. But the other one, I wonder, how often do you hear of people who think what you're writing's true? In other words, I got to be honest, my wife not too long ago had someone send one of the articles to her going, did you know? And she thought it was real. Like, she didn't even think it could be a joke.
Yeah, it happens all the time, and it's the most bizarre articles too. The ones you wouldn't think anybody would think would ever be true. We got fact checked by USA Today we wrote an article saying that the Ninth Circuit tried to overturn Ruth Bader Ginsburg's death, and or actually did overturn her death. And USA Today wrote this long fact check about it, how it was not true. And it was really funny because the USA Today article, they're saying, like, the lady who wrote the article says she called the Ninth Circuit Court to ask them, did you guys actually overturn Ruth Bader Ginsburg's death? So it happens all the time. Like, we've been fact checked dozens and dozens of times, and yeah, again, it's the most bizarre ones. I think one of the earliest ones we did was that we got fact checked was Stephen Furtick. We said Elevation Church. We said they had a water slide baptismal, and we didn't really know how to use Photoshop very well, so the picture is very it's pretty bad. We just copied this swirly water slide onto the church stage, and the church is like issuing a statement, we don't actually have a water slide. Stop calling about it, like all that stuff. So it happens, and I think it's an indictment both on how crazy our culture is right now, that some of that stuff's believable. If the target of your satire is that insane that like people actually thought it was real, that it might be actually happening, then there's something to be said there. And also it's a natural kind of upshot of the way that people consume information now. It's online, and it must be true. It's on my Facebook feed. So,
I think that's the danger, to me. How many people go, well, I read this, and you're like, but where did you read it?
Yeah,
what is your source, and so we live in a time like that. But what I really love is that, the way you guys are able to bring some fun, some humor, some things like that, out of it. So what are some of your favorite recent headlines you guys have done?
Oh man, recently it's been a crazy time. We had the news cycle has been so fast. It's like Afghanistan happened, and then it feels like nobody's even talking about it anymore. And that's the bizarre thing about writing art stuff is like, if I threw out a joke about Afghanistan right now, nobody would share it because they're like, "What are you talking about? That's done. That's over."
Yeah,
that's how fast it is. I don't know. I think we just did a couple of. For me, my favorite stuff to do, we do a lot of the political humor because it just gets shared like crazy. That's what people like is to be able to do that. My favorite stuff is more of the general, really niche Christian humor that I still like to write all the time. We did a couple of lists of telling people how to woo a godly Christian girl and how to woo a godly Christian guy, and those, and it's funny because those still they don't get shared as much and they don't go viral. You don't see them as much, but they still just people click on those and they read them, and our commenters will go on there and just love it because I think there's something fun about being able to make fun of ourselves too.
Oh yeah. No, I agree with that. Yeah, that's really fun.
But yeah, I think you mentioned earlier we did the one about the wife who claims that that she spent the $3.5 trillion she spent at Target actually cost $0. That was a fun one.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's hilarious. Yeah. And I have to say, the Biden warns, or not Biden. There it is. Biden says we can afford 3.5 trillion because China just gave him a cool new Visa card.
Yeah.
I think that with the low interest rate.
Low introductory rates, right?
Yeah. Which I just thought was so good. And then of course, then you have another Trump joke, and so there really is a balance here. But the interesting thing is, I know right now you guys are very, and not right now, but always, you're really on what's happening in the news. So even R. Kelly's on here, some other things are on here. So how much reading do you have to do ahead of time to get to this?
Well, not as much as you would think. Like, all we really need to do to tell a good joke is know what's happening, what people are talking about. And that's the main thing. Like, what are people talking about online right now that might be a good vehicle for us to get some humor out there. So yeah, you don't really have to have like a ton of details about a particular story, and I think that can kind of hurt it too. Because if you start to get a ton of details about something, you start to get way into the weeds, and then you're not really focused on this big picture of, okay, what is the salient point that everybody's making about this, that we can either take that point and put it in a humorous form, or we can come out with that third angle, for that kind of thing. So, and I hate reading the news and following the news. I wouldn't do it if I didn't have to.
Oh, okay, yeah. Oh, that's fun. Yeah, I did spot the one you just said now, 10 ways to attract a godly Christian man. And then it says, for the ladies only. Guys, please do not click.
I had that idea for a long time that I wanted to put a warning in a headline, like, this is only for ladies. Please don't click on this guy's honor system. Like, don't click on it. And it's funny because that got a lot more clicks than the other article because we told people not to click on it.
Oh, yeah. James Dobson years ago wrote a book called What Wives Wish Their Husbands Knew About Women. And it sold by more to women than to men.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so
right.
yeah, that's really true. And then you have X-Men solve gender name controversy by kicking out all women. I thought that's a good one.
Well, that's a great example right there, because the joke everybody was telling when the X-Men writer came out and said that they were going to change the name from X-Men because it was too exclusive. And the joke everybody's telling is, well, X person or X, they or X. So how do you, in that environment, when everybody's already making those memes and jokes, come in with this different angle? So one of our great writers, Frank, came up with this idea that, well, they'll just kick out all the women, and now it's fine because it's just X-Men.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's really, really cool.
And they also kicked out Cyclops because nobody likes Cyclops.
That's too true. Well, you know what? I really, really am excited about your site. I'm excited about the fact lots of people are reading. And I know you guys have just got to be feeling, don't you feel really good about the way it keeps growing?
Yeah, it's great. I mean, we've always had our challenges with social media networks and Facebook and Twitter and all that, but we're always finding new ways to just do new things. Our YouTube channel with our videos has just been an extremely explosive growth for us. That's just been a great way to kind of find new ways to get content out to people. The popularity of the site just keeps growing in terms of followers and on all the different social networks, and it's just awesome. We'll ride it as long as the Lord blesses it. It's been a lot of fun. So
okay, and I love that. So just in case somebody doesn't know how to find you guys, they can go on the web to where?
Yeah, BabylonB.com directly to our website is the best way. That we publish those 8 fresh piping hot articles every morning right to BabylonB.com. You can also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, all the different sites. We're even on TikTok. I don't even really know what TikTok is, but we're on there.
You're on TikTok. Yeah. Okay, that's cool.
We hired a Gen Z girl to run that. Hey, just do stuff on there. We don't even know what it is. But we got that. We also have paid subscriptions where people can support us directly at BabylonB.com/plans. That was one way that we kind of got around a lot of the suppression that we were facing on social media. People just support us directly on a monthly basis or whatever, and that's been awesome. The support has been incredible.
Okay, no, that is really, really cool, and that way people can make sure it keeps going and we don't hit kind of a weird censorship moment.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Kyle, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. This has been awesome. Thanks for the delicious Dunkin' coffee. This podcast brought to you by Dunkin'.
Now, the people at Crossroads are going to believe that's true because there's a rumor out that I have sponsorship from Dunkin'.
Well, there it is.
And so I think that's kind of fun. People believe it. But anyway, hey, thanks for tuning in today. And make sure and check out Babylon Bee. Have fun with it. Pass the word on. Don't just read it on your own. Make sure other people know about it. And, it's good that we get to have fun in a world today where there's so much that's not fun. And the one thing that I hope you never do is lose your joy, lose your ability to laugh. I can't remember who said it, but somebody pretty famous said, the first sign of death is the inability to laugh. And I think that's too true. I think it's too true. So, hey, we'll join you guys later again with another podcast. And don't forget our Wednesday services and our Sunday services. God bless you guys and take care.